what we do is we do a warrant study. We'll talk a little bit about what that means, right? But there's some data that we have to go through. There's a process we go through to count traffic, to count pedestrians in certain instances. And that lets us know whether or not the signal is warranted. As you heard recently, and I was shocked to know that we're the 10th largest city in the country now, right? And if you've looked at the Facebook posts that were associated with that announcement, there were a lot of comments in there, you know, like, well, yeah, it feels like it. It feels like when I'm on the freeway, it feels like when I'm driving, it feels like when I'm at the store. I live in Fort Worth myself, I understand what you're saying. But with that growth does come some congestion. I mean, that's just what happens. And so I want to make sure that it's clear that when we get a request in terms of the signal, we perform the study, and that's what you see out there right now, in fact, because the last time we did that, we conducted a study, it wasn't warranted. But much like any other thing that we do at the city, it's not a finished discussion just with either a yes or a no. Because sometimes the yes means we're going to fix something, we're going to do something, and then we find out that it's not really working. We get calls back from the community, hey, this isn't really doing what we thought it would do. Is there another solution? And so we might come back in and study it again and try to come up with a different solution that helps a little bit better. So it's no matter what happens, it's an ongoing conversation. I mean, we literally work for the community, so it's never a one and done kind of conversation. We do work for the community, so that means all of Fort Worth. So whatever 0.1 million people and 360 square miles almost. And so, you know, it's a pretty large, we're a large city, and we're spread out. I mean, you know, we go all the way from almost Burleson to almost, was not Joshua. Justin, thank you. And then all the way from Walsh Ranch out west in Aledo, ISD has schools in Fort Worth, all the way to just east of 360. So, you know, we're a very large, spread out city. And so, as you know, with budgets, just like our home budgets, there's only so much money we have that we can spend on infrastructure in general. One of the things that we do, and Raj, the city traffic engineer, he can speak a little bit more to this in detail, but when we get a call for a signal warrant, we'll go out, we'll review that signal warrant location, and we'll try to see if it is warranted. If it is warranted, we have a list of warranted but unfunded signals that we keep in Transportation Public Works, so that if funding does become available, because sometimes you can get state funding, sometimes you can get federal funding, sometimes there's developer money that developers will contribute into, you know, kind of a service area, and y'all have heard of impact fees, right? So sometimes we may accumulate enough of impact fees in coordination with development to be able to install the signal. So there are a couple different things that we can do. So we keep that list, and we'll let you know if you submitted the request that, hey, this signal is warranted. We may not have the funding right now, but you know, in the future or whenever, we'll try to get it done. We just had the 26 bond program. We had a number of signals that were in there, and I know, like the video showed, there were some issues here. There are issues that are worse than that in other parts of the city, where the traffic volume and the speeds are more drastic in terms of, you know, things that are happening. But we are testing those signals or checking the warrant studies right now. I think it's running at those two intersections, Raj. What are they running?
Right. So we did last couple of years, 2 years back. We wanted to update the data to make sure that we are doing the current count. And it happened to be, it just happened to be before the meeting. We ordered the count.
Right.
It thought to be scheduled it before the meeting. But anyway, so we'll get after, it takes the vendor to process 2 to 3 weeks. Probably we'll get in first, second week of June. So probably by the end of June, we will have the warrant study done for both of these sections to see if it meets the single warrant or not.
So
Does it have to be a signal? Can it not just be stop signs?
well, when we're checking for
I'll buy 2 stop signs for you guys.
So it's not that simple either. Stop signs aren't that simple either.
So as we talked about the single warrant, so we follow the Texas Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Device. It is just it has all the standard which, if you want to do an all-day stop, there is a criteria and things to meet, and mostly the wall. Right? So, for example, if your main line has 1,000 cars going, right, and you've got 100 cars or 50 cars on the side of the street, you do not need the warrant. Because now you're stocking all 1,000 cars or 100 cars to come out. So we follow that. I mean, it's not that we made it, it's a state statute and coming from federal government and other standard. So if you not meet the warrant, you will not install the all the warrant. And the reason behind, it seems like very common sense, right? Just install four-way warrant and solves all the issue. It does create another issue. There are issues with the all-way stop, which is not warranted. People run them, so they will run the stop sign, and that's more severe crash than somebody is coming and stop. We have issues
Not with these.
right,
I have personal experience with a crash there.
right.
So,
No, the
So,
crash happens.
hold on, Raj. So what we're doing right now is checking, we're doing warrant analysis for signals, right?
Right.
There's a different analysis that we do for stop.
And we can look at that one too at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's what the request is, and I
Right.
think that's what we should do.
Right.
So that's what we'll do. And that's should be a pretty easy shift.
Yeah, once we have the data, we can look at it.
Yeah, we'll look at it for both
Right.
types of warrants.
How long does
Somebody,
this study go for? Like, is it?
let me address her question before I get to her, because she said something about a roundabout. We're on the maintenance side of things and on just traffic. So we do everything above pavement in terms of traffic management and transportation management. Once you get into concrete changes, like curb and gutter, widening streets, now you're getting into capital delivery and more bond, like high dollar type projects. Our projects, we don't get that big of a budget when in comparison. I mean, we get billions of dollars, but we've got to spread it all over the city in terms of signs, signals, pavement markings, street lights and things of that nature. Yes, ma'am.
How
And then
long
somebody
is
else.
the study going for? Because
Oh.
like it's the end of the school year, so is it gonna like study summer traffic?
No, we collected the data. That data is the most important part. So once we get the data, that's why we did before the school closed. So that we always collect the data when the school
During
is session.
Okay.
So once we get the data, that's the only piece we need. And once it processed by the vendor, because we don't collect the data, we don't vendor.
I think what she's worried about is school is about to end. And we know last year when the one was placed in Chisholm Ridge Elementary, it was after school was ended, so it did not really reflect
Okay.
normal.
So-
Like in the video, the car that hit the fence, like that's my house. So I hear all of the wrecks that happen and we'll look over the fence, we'll call 911 most of the time. And I've been writing down the times and it's always 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning. It's usually when the majority of the wrecks are happening. And that's school traffic and work traffic. So if it's collected when Great Hearts is on summer break, I feel like that's very different.
Yeah. And we don't. We'll collect it during school, and that's what he's saying. We collected that data. We'll still collect more data here,
I
but
think
we
she's
do.
asking the study
It's like-
that's happening right now, when does it end? Because school is
Right.
getting out.
No, it's just a 1 day.
Oh, okay.
It's a 24-hour count. It's not like you're gonna cut it for.
And Great Hearts ended on Friday, Wednesday.
Next Friday.
I know everybody started to do half days,
Yeah.
that's toward the end of
So
it.
traffic's really weird.
So that's where the question is, Raj, is
It's a 24-hour counts with the tools, so that you get the volume.
during school. Your school has ended, so we still have the tubes out, we're catching the data on the back end, of it,
Otherwise, they're
not during
for
school.
usually it's a 24 hours.
Right.
So they will bring
Right.
the tools and.
So they might not have collected them. But that's our typical policy because it really gives the best chance, because it has the most traffic then, right? Like you said, schools, school and rush hour time frame. So that's when we do the counts, because that's going to maximize the number of cars that we count for whatever warrant we're trying to do.
So what about the new apartment complex that's going to get built? Because this study's not going to include the increase of that traffic. As well
Well,
as.
let me address that. Let me address a couple more things and then start taking questions. One of the things is, when the school came in, right, Great Hearts came in, they were not anticipating having students walk to the campus, right? They were anticipating everybody dropping them off, which is what you typically would see with charter schools and other schools along those lines. And as you know, we see a lot of those now. So we got calls from the community, maybe some of y'all, where I recognize a few faces, so maybe some of y'all that called in. We came out, we did a study out there, pedestrian study. We saw kids walking, and so we created that crosswalk right at their private, easement area. And we created and then put the school zone there as well. So one of the things that we have planned is RRFB, or Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon. And you've seen some of those at different crossings on arterials, and it's just to make it a little more safe than even just a crosswalk, so to speak. But it's the ones that, kid or anybody could hit a button, and that button will it flashes pretty bright. I have one near my house on an arterial, and it flashes pretty bright. And so it's just another step to take to try to make it a little bit safer for that crossing. In addition to that, like we're doing the studies, like Raj talked about, and Raj can probably answer some more questions on that. But in addition to that, to what we did already is the RFP. So we're trying to come up with something that will make that a little bit more safe as well. And that's what I mean in terms of the fact that it's not just a one and done conversation, right? So when we got the first call and said, hey, kids are trying to cross here, we work with development services. And development services, I'm not just saying it's because he's sitting here. But their team has been outstanding to work with. And their team really came together in the last 2 or 3 years, right? But they've been outstanding to work with in terms of making sure that we maximize what we can get developers to give to us as the public and as the city, right? So when they come in, we try to maximize what they have to do in terms of impact fees or in terms of infrastructure. And there are certain things that development services, and Leon can speak to that when he speaks, but there's certain things they can do and certain things they can't do, right? And so they try to maximize all that they can. And like I talked about in terms of impact fees, one of those things that we can do in service areas over time is use those impact fees to install infrastructure. And so that's part of how it's all set up. You can look at the city website and see presentations done by development services on that topic to the public or to developers or et cetera. There's a lot of good information out there related to that. We have a sidewalk project that is planned for this fiscal year, running. It's one of those intersections where there's a gap in the sidewalk. There's a gap in the sidewalk. Y'all are more familiar with it than I am, but there's a gap in the sidewalk there. And so our team, another senior CPO on our team, has a project to fill those gaps, those sidewalk gaps. So I want to make sure that y'all knew that. And so again, it's a continuing conversation. She was in a meeting and she had a conversation that talked about the crosswalk. And somebody said, hey, we're missing gaps in sidewalk. Where's the location? Okay, it's here. Let's go look at it and see if we can include this in one of our programs. And so that's what we've done. And so you'll see that sidewalk, implemented pretty quickly. And again, we do smaller projects like that. We can't widen the road in terms of transportation management, but there are other sections and other means of funding large projects like the bond program that just passed in the city that pay for massive projects, big projects, big bridges. You talked about bridges just a moment ago. And those are done by a different group. And after they're done, there's another group in TPW that takes over maintenance. We take over maintenance of pavement markings, street lights, signals, and things of that nature. Others take over maintenance of pavement. So just to give a little bit of overview of kind of how that works. I don't know, Raj and Leon, if y'all want to say a few words before we just start opening up for more questions. But I did want to address that there's a couple more projects that we have going on in the area. And the other most important thing I want to make sure everybody knows is that it's not a one and done conversation. So it's an ongoing thing. If something doesn't work, we'll try something else. I don't know, you gentlemen want to?
No, I mean, along your line, as we get requests, we look at the things and we look at is there a safety issue, what we can do, and then can we program it, as Marty talked about, maintenance, how much funding we have, and we go from there. So we always look at the requests, whatever we can do, and then we go from there.
Do you guys take into account the number of reported accidents?
Yes. And that's one of the things I don't know if anybody from PD could talk about it. Well, actually, I haven't accessed it myself.
We have it. We have it.
Yeah. And the only thing that slowed us down, PD might be able to speak to this in a second too, after Leon speaks. And that is, when accidents happen, they're put into the system. There used to be a quicker way, I think, that we used to come to us. But I think now it's all going through the state, maybe, through the CRIS system. Yeah, it's going all through the state. And anybody work for the tech dot in here?
Nobody works.
There's video tech. But the state's a much bigger organization. It takes a little bit longer for things to go through. So the accident that we just saw, I think it might have been on your video, or it might have been a different email, maybe you sent it. But that accident probably isn't going to show up in that CRIS system immediately. It's going to take a little while for that to happen. And that time frame, I don't know. How long it takes after the accident.
I've been told a couple weeks.
Okay.
Are you talking about
I know
like
we
from
had
when
one-
we enter it to like when
Yeah.
TechStop is reporting it?
Mhm.
I've been told a couple weeks, but
We
again,
had one on Meadowbrook that took about 2 months.
Provided there's no errors in the report that it
Yeah.
gets kicked back for, which is
That probably had
unusual.
one.
If it doesn't
Yeah.
get kicked back, it's usually about 2 to 3 weeks, but if it gets kicked back,
It
it's
starts
going to be
over.
quite a bit longer. than
Yeah.
that.
And so just to, again, let all of you know, kind of what that takes in terms of time frame and when it will show up on the report, to your point. But yes, we do take into effect, and that's not just vehicle crashes, correct?
So, as we do the signal warrant, there is a criteria for crash. So it has defined that how many crashes should occur to qualify that criteria, and correctable crashes. So if you have a right angle crashes, if you install a signal, that can be solved. But signal doesn't solve everything, right?
Right.
So you may have a rear end crashes. So we are trying to see if there was more right angle crashes versus rear end crashes. So I can eliminate those right angle crashes. So that gives me a point that I can put it there. Okay, these are the correctable crashes. That's how we look at it. If there is a rear end or property damage, probably that will not go in there, depending on the situation. And we also read through the report. So once you read through the report, we actually know why the crash happened. Is somebody was impaired, somebody was not paying attention. Sometimes reports have those summary. So this gives us a pretty good idea from engineering perspective, that is there anything I see which I could have fixed versus was it a driver error or driver was impaired or tired or fatigued, and those things are in the report. So that gives us a very good idea. We go into detail review of those reports.
Just before we take questions, I just kind of want to piggyback on what Martin said, development. So traditionally, charter schools and public schools, high schools have been challenging, and since 21, when this came in as a study, as a TIA study of traffic impact analysis, we have refined our processes a bit more to help identify those traffic mitigations. Since this, we've had some lessons learned. We work closely with Martin and Raj and your group. So I do want everyone to have the takeaway that there are improvements that we've identified that can go forward, even though it may not be relevant to what was reviewed back in 20 or 21. We have taken some lessons learned from this.
Yeah, thank you, Leon. And I just want to make sure that that's mentioned too, because I know there's a lot more land in the area as development comes in and we get the TIAs or traffic impact analysis. And those developers, their engineers are required to look at the impact their traffic is going to have on the public. And that's a part of it. And so it may even be, it's a piece of a bigger puzzle, and that's where that impact fee kind of comes into play. So when you put all those pieces together, you get a bucket of money, so to speak, and then you can go build something that each one of those developments contributed to, much like the residential properties as well. I guess we can take questions now. Sid, you okay with that? Yeah, gentlemen, and then the lady.
To me, it just seems crazy we don't even have a crosswalk going between Ridgeview Farms and Chisholm Ridge. Because you got traffic, pedestrian traffic, people going to 7-Eleven. I'm sure during the summer, I know when I was a kid, 7-Eleven, you get on your bike and ride across or whatever, and you got people flying, going 60 miles an hour down Harmon.
Have you made that request using the My Fort Worth app or call the
No.
CTPW and make the request?
No, because I figured this was a good forum to start and see what was.
I mean, it is.
Because I didn't know what was going on.
It is, but I would encourage you, I encourage everybody, use the My Fort Worth app. Because when you put your issue in there, I use it myself. When you put your issue in there, you get a service request number, and then that number is, it goes to whatever department. It could be PE, it could be code, it could be fire, whomever. And that department gets that service request, and they have to address it. And then they have to respond to you, and you have that service request number that you can call in if you hadn't heard anything and say, hey, give me the status on their service request number. And, anybody could look it up and then tell you what's going on with it. So just talk to me before, because my memory's horrible, that's why I write everything down. And I'll write it down, and we'll get your information, and then we'll create a service request and have it reviewed. And that's exactly what happened with the crosswalk that's out there. Somebody called it in this case, I think they emailed us, but that's how it ended up, getting installed. So that's how things happen in the city. Yes, ma'am.
So I have 2 questions. The first question is, how can you, what is the thought process with a 24-hour data? And that 24-hour, I'm a little concerned about that, because if you say you do the data on Monday, well, I'm going to go to Friday, say you do it on Friday, I can tell you Lockheed Martin, half their employees are off on Friday. So 24 hours doesn't necessarily give you the data, maybe school was half day that day.
He can
Maybe,
address it. He can
yeah,
address it. You wanna address how
maybe
the data's
school, the
collected?
seniors didn't go to school that day. 24 hours, I'd like to,
So-
understand a little bit
Right, so
further.
we collect the 24 hours to get kind of what's the volume in the road, 24 hours. When we look at the warrant, we are looking at the peak hours. So from 6 to 9, midday, 12 to 1. So we have the data, but we getting the data when the traffic is high. So when we are looking the warrant, we are just looking at those peak hours data. It's not the, like 2 o'clock in the night. I'm not using the 2 o'clock night data to come up with that. So it's the software itself, it's just like any other software. We look at the higher number and come up with that, okay, these are the hours where we meet the warrant. And mostly it's your AM peak, usually 6 to 9. Your PM peak varies from school. If there's school, school peak and commuter peak doesn't match usually sometimes. Around you're close to like 4 o'clock, then it's kind of start building up. You have 4 to 6. So that's 3 hours in the morning, and that's how the 8-hour warrant starts. So what it does that, it says, hey, signal is warranted for 8 hours. And in those situations, we say, yeah, signal is warranted. So the data, yeah, we do collect 24 hours.
So I guess you just get lucky on the 24-hour, that day is the high traffic day.
We try
And that's my concern.
Right, it's an anomaly, right? We can be, if we are collecting 365, the data is expensive to collect, right? So we can collect 365 days of data. But we try to
Walk through what would happen, or walk through in this case, what happens when the request comes? What days do we try to get that? Obviously, we try to get it during school, so we
Right.
maximize the traffic.
Right.
What days and how long, and talk about it from that perspective. I think that's where her question is.
So usually we try to schedule Tuesday, Wednesday, these are the most general days, and not Fridays, because I don't want
Not
an anomaly,
Yeah.
right? So I want a consistent.
That's my remote day.
Or before a holiday weekend, or like a holiday weekend.
Depends
like
on the
this week.
situation, what we are doing the account for.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing account in stockyards, I want a Saturday
Yeah, you
data,
want the
rather
maximum day.
than Monday morning data, so
Yeah, but-
that's where it is.
Like
Is the
this
cost,
time it
is
was
the cost
put
so
after
extreme between 1 day and
the
5 days?
rush hour.
Hold on, we got 2 questions.
It doesn't matter when they put it, we order a count, we tell them what we need, they will provide us. So it's, I don't know what time they put it.
Yeah, we have to
How
go back
long
and
they
ask
get
those
it, they
questions.
get it
Well,
for
Well,
I
their
saw the truck
concerns-
and it was after 8 AM, which most of the wrecks are
Yeah, so,
actually prior.
right, so
Yeah.
maybe they run next day too. So
We have to check- we'll check the data too.
We will get the data, it will show exactly the timestamp when the data was collected, it shows the hours, so there is no anomaly. If the data is like not as.
If it doesn't match up when it should have been collected, we'll also have to
Right.
check the contract.
And they have,
Simple as that.
the vendor has a lot of location to cover, so they may put it like other time, but they will run to the next day to get the whole data. So we will get the data. I don't go in their process, how they collect, we tell them the date, and we tell them what we need, and we pay.
Okay.
And there are several different warrants, or ways that the intersection can warrant a signal. And so they'll collect the 24-hour, like Roger's saying, because that's one of the points. But the other points are the maximum points that you collect within that 24 to address what you were saying. Mr. TC?
Is there some, I know that, 1 day seems very small, and then you said 365, obviously that's pretty extreme. And I know there's a cost associated with everything, but would it be so extreme to stretch from 1 day to 5 days? Like a Monday through Friday for one solid week of traffic
Right.
data?
So as Martin was saying, we get 26,000 requests.
Yeah.
And if you look at the signal, we have already 100+ locations they want to do the signal warrant. Now, if you multiply that, it's not practical for us to spend limited funding on the count.
I have another question.
She had one, and then her, then back to you.
So my other question is, you had mentioned that developers, so we are in West Fork Ranch, so we're a little bit further. So we get all the cut-through traffic, right, coming down Horseman. And now the bond is asking for Bailey Boswell to go all the way through. So now we're gonna get influx on ours. And my question to that is, we've experienced it in our neighborhood. You say that this apartment complex that's gonna come in, you're gonna ask them, to fund some of the traffic problems, right? So that's part of the study that you do.
It depends on the nature of it. Leon can address it.
Sure,
Yeah.
but my question to that
Yeah,
is, how do we hold you and them accountable to ensure that those happen? Because in West Fork Ranch, you held Pulte and Syntex Home accountable for donating X amount of money, right, X amount of dollars, to do X amount of work, right? And after 15 years, that has not come true. I know in our, you asked Pulte to put a traffic light in at Horseman and Basswood. Well, 5 years ago, you then ripped up all the lines and electricity for that stoplight, and now we have a roundabout, which is a whole nother support and problem. So how do we hold the city, how do we hold the developer accountable for what you're gonna sell us? And that is, we're gonna put all these different things in place, and then the buildings go up, and guess what? Only 50% of that has gone into place.
To tack on to what she's saying, a new apartment is gonna be built right there by the 7-Eleven that's gonna affect Chisholm Ridge community.
Yeah, you're
And I
gonna,
have, and we're gonna get, I got on my nose. But we, what's the developer gonna do for us to make sure our traffic?
they're gonna build and
It's
leave.
right there by the school.
So, first, Mark was speaking about traffic impact fees, right? So, the city has 26 areas, essentially it's a grid where they identify when development comes in, based on the type of development, size of development, they contribute dollars to a fund. Now, those dollars that's at the building permit phase, right? So you pull the building permit and you owe X dollars each time you pull the building permit. Those dollars go into a fund for that service area, and those dollars are for transportation improvements in that area, not necessarily a specific location, right? It's a regional.
That's a problem.
Yes, it's regional. Now, at the same time, on the front end of development, they'll do an traffic impact analysis, and using the city processes and policies, we'll determine that outside of that fee, which is separate from the building permit and that process, we'll determine what mitigations are necessary based on the number of trips, the surrounding roadways and those types of things, and the uses of that property. And we hold, that's what Barton was speaking to earlier, we've kind of improved our processes where at the planning stage is where we generally catch those. If it's already platted, it'll be building permit. But that's where we say, okay, you have to build a right turn lane, right? This is separate from your TRIF funds. This is, before we approve this final plat, you have to obligate to build this right turn lane. So we have processes now that are a bit more formalized and a bit more organized than, say, 10 years ago, as far as, even 5 years ago, as far as having developers address and mitigate their traffic. I'll get to you, sir. So on the apartment, right? So there are industry standards which assign trips based on the uses of zoning and those things. Based on those industry standards, you hear Ron talk about PM peaks and AM peaks. Those peaks are like 100, and that wouldn't really require a mitigation for that apartment complex.
What does that mean?
So the apartment complex is not going to build any additional infrastructure, to your question. That's what I was thinking.
I'd like to piggyback on that if I'm not on the whole thing. So we all recognize that when new builders come in, they do the studies, the surveys, and they pay an impact fee for the increased traffic to help increase the infrastructure to accommodate said traffic. If you could take Presidio Junction as a prime example, their impact fee was to help put in a bridge over 287 that you showed on your video. That was supposed to be done this year. 2.5 years it was supposed to be under construction. It was supposed to start 2.5 years ago. So their impact fee went to something, but it didn't go to that bridge because the bridge isn't there. So now we're talking about an apartment who's paying impact fees to widen the roads, crosswalks, or RFPs or whatever, but we're not going to see it for 10 years. So,
I want to go back to
that's the problem.
the traffic impact fees. Even though a development paid those fees, those potential improvements from those dollars won't necessarily go in that location.
That's what I just
What's
said.
the problem?
That's
That's the problem.
That's the
Well,
problem.
that's the way our traffic impact fee is set up. It's set up.
We gotta do better.
So, and let me address a little bit of that too, because when it's in that pot, right there, in that region, like Leon's talking about, there may be different needs. So it's not just that this apartment complex that's right next to y'all is not funding some improvements right here. There could be an apartment complex that's still in the same region that's as far away from you as you can get within that service area. But that money is still within your service area that may go to some improvements here. And the way that we determine where it goes is the analysis of, of those situations, those intersections, the crosswalks, is it adjacent to a school, is it adjacent to a park, what does the community really need? And that's kind of what goes into that. Now, the city's in the midst of some changes, not just in our population, but in terms of our master thoroughfare plans being revised into a master roadway network. And that's supposed to have more components to it. This is, again, some of the improvements that Leon's talking about. Years past, the items, and Leon, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the items that were eligible for impact fees to be spent on had to be included in the impact fee study.
Part of the plan,
Yeah, transportation plan. Well, moving forward, we're gonna have more opportunity for projects to be included, for projects to have that funding. So one of the first things we might ask is, okay, you asked for a signal at an intersection. Hey, is it impact fee eligible? So it has to be in that study that was done years and years ago. I don't know the date on it. But it would have to be in that, and if it's in there, then it is eligible, but it has to compete with all the other eligible projects within that area. You asked a question in terms of accountability. For the city, it's really easy. For developers, I think it's really easy too, in terms of what we do, because like Leon said, those impact fees go into a fund. So it's a pot of money that the city is in control of. And we have to spend it within 10 years or so on something in that region. But it's the small pieces, like if the development comes in and whatever their impact fee is may not be enough to cover whatever the improvement is. And so a number of developers have to kind of come in order for there to be enough money in that pot for us to do something.
But when you sell us that this apartment complex is coming in, right? So they presented this case, this apartment complex is coming in, and I'm gonna go a little off. And there's 80 entrances and there's 4,000 parking spots, right? So that's what you're selling to the community. We're gonna build this, we've authorized it, we have all these entrances into it, there's 8,000 parking, we're not gonna have the parking on the street with Presidio. That I'm a very experienced driver, scares the living daylights out of me trying to get down there from Aldi over. Regardless, so this is what you sell to us. So we're like, fantastic, build it, we're here, let's do it, right? Now you're telling me, well, they paid for all of that, we sold it to you for all that, we've collected the funds for all that, but really, down south by the stockyards, they really need a new road, and that's where we're gonna use that money.
That's not the case.
That's what we're hearing.
That's what we're hearing.
If we were moving in a new community.
I'm missing,
So-
what I'm trying to understand with.
Okay, so there's an apartment complex coming in, right? Right next to Great Hearts, on top of the high school for Great Hearts, right? That's what you guys are telling us, that's one reason that we're here. So we have this apartment complex coming in, and we have the high school that Great Hearts is gonna add on, okay? So that's an influx of cars, it's an influx of traffic, right? So now you're coming back and you're saying, so we're coming to you and we're saying, well, what are we gonna do with the cars? What are we gonna do with the walkers? Why are people walking? I'll tell you why they're walking, because they can't drive in there. So if I park in Chisholm Ridge, walk over and get my child, I can get in and out quicker, right? That is what they're doing. They did it at ILT as well.
Right.
So one of the things that Chisholm Ridge had to do with Great Hearts, the parents were parking on two of our entrances. We had to put in major boulders and stop them from parking in our.
On the grass.
So your point, you asked, what are we selling? So you're not selling, you're informing. You're informing us that this apartment complex is coming in, and you're informing us that Great Hearts is building a high school. So you're informing us that the influx of vehicles are going to be there. Influx, it's gonna happen, right? You're also telling us right now that we cannot give you a 4-lane today, and I'm not sure about the traffic light, we're still doing 24-hour surveillance on that. So in the meantime, this developer, you have went to them and you have said, I need $1 million for the influx of traffic that you are going to produce to build this, right? That's what you're saying. So that developer says, okay, so we're gonna produce all these cars, and we have to pay $1 million for it. Now you're coming back and saying, the developer gave you the $1 million, but we're gonna use it down in the stockyards. That's what we're hearing from you.
It's used, yeah, in the greater service area. I guess my point is, I want to make sure I understand, when that developer pays those dollars, it doesn't necessarily get used in that specific area. It is.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Because now you have the problem.
So the system is really just set up in terms of the service areas, and I wish we could pull up what that looks like. Because the funding up here would never go to the stockyards. The service area is smaller than that. It's closer to your house. I know, I'm just saying, it's not like it's gonna be very far away from where it came into.
But it should go to that project of making sure we have 8,000 parking spots. It should go to that project that we have, 50 entrances, and I'm exaggerating, 100%. I don't have those documents.
What I would say
in
to
front
you
of me.
is, there's probably a lot of us who, and residents, I'm a resident of Fort Worth myself, probably a lot of us that feel like there should be more changes in what we're doing. What Leon is speaking to are some of the changes that we implemented over the last 2 or 3 years to try to make it a little bit better, to address some of the things you're talking about. Some of the developers that you're talking about, though, were zoned, when did that department went through zoning?
2021.
So we're all supposed to be
2021.
happy about a sidewalk. Great. That doesn't do anything for transportation out here. And,
Well, we got requests from your community that want them.
I mean.
And so we're putting them in. We got requests from your community that you wanted the crosswalks, and so we put it in. We got requests from your community that wanted a school zone, and so we put it in.
The schools are.
And we don't have, well, I'm just saying, we're responding to the community, that's all I'm saying. And so her point is a good point. We don't have the authority necessarily to change city policy or ordinances and things like that.
Okay.
But I think it's a good point in terms of how we address it as a community.
Okay, so
when it comes to developer funding, when it comes in.
what is the number that
That's just-
warrants a stoplight? Tell me the number on the traffic, you should know in a 24-hour period, what is the number that warrants a
It
stoplight?
has to meet the volume criteria.
What is the volume?
You can't run over it and run back track.
No, I want to know, by the way. They're not gonna lie. No, there's maybe some madness here. What is the number?
I had to look at the number, table, right?
Tell-
So you have, at least on the major road.
So he doesn't know. If you can't tell him.
It's more complicated.
So let's not complain, right?
Continue to come down Harmon.
Right?
We'll get you, sir.
Let me finish.
Let him finish this.
They don't stop
You
to
asked
worry
the
about it.
question, I'm answering the question.
Come on.
So on the main line, you have to have minimum 600 cars. On the sideline, it has to be about 100 to 150 cars. That's for 8 hours.
Okay.
That's how it meets the warrant.
Okay.
So if you don't have 100 cars, if you have 50 cars coming from the side street, it will not the warrant. So those numbers are there. If you want the warrant study, we can provide you. You can look at the count, you can look at the data. There is nothing we are trying to do.
When was the last time you did the warrant study, and what was it? What was the total?
I think it was, it's not like a, okay.
Okay. Well, what was the
It has
amount?
to- I don't have the number right now. And
don't come
it's that time it didn't meet the warrant. So it has to, how we recommend a signal, just to clarify, right? Because we get a lot of requests. We already have 30 plus signal which is in the backlog, which meets the warrant. If you look at any intersection, right? Any busy intersection, in the peak hour, 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, it will meet the signal warrant. That doesn't mean that we can install a signal because it's just warranted for 2 hours. Usually we recommend the signal when it meets the 8-hour warrant. Or if it meets the 4-hour with the crash criteria. So there are rules and standards which we have to follow. Because if you're saying I'm just going to install a signal because I feel like it doesn't work that way.
Right, but if you had the data on
Right.
hand, then, because I did my own homework. This concern came up back in 2018 when the bond, when the city, was pushing for this bond. Residents came in 2018. He's over here talking about 20 and 22. This is long before that. This is from 2018. So here we are, 8 years later, still having a bigger issue. Y'all approved Great Hearts, March of 2022. And so, I know, because I knew that. I knew that. So we've had this traffic concern and issue from when y'all wanted people to vote for a bond in 2018. You approved, Great Hearts was approved March 2022. Here we go, still, let's just pile more traffic on. And so now.
They pay.
They pay, but the money goes elsewhere, you know?
So let me reiterate that, I mean, where Development Services does what they can in terms of those developments, and we have made some changes, and I understand where you're coming from, that it feels like more change needs to happen, and you wish, and I'm dealing with some of the same type issues as a resident. I'll take my city employee hat off for a second. As a resident, I deal with some of the same kind of issues, so I know what you're saying. I think the improvements that we've made recently, and we're continually trying to make, are to address concerns like y'all are talking about now. We can't solve it overnight, and yes, those issues existed in 2018. South of me, I live in South Fort Worth, there was nothing but coyotes, and now there's 20,000, 30,000 houses between
Yes.
the 1187. So I understand what you're saying, and that all that traffic now is coming through.
And with the data,
But-
which we do 24-hour, you know.
Well, and that's.
We ought to be able to
that's a
see the
part of it.
progress. You should be able to sit here and tell me, okay, Paige, so from
No, that's part of it.
2024, the last time we ran data, here's where the progress is. Here is, we know.
We'll be
You
able to
ought to be
do
able to
that.
data us that.
We'll be able to do that comparison because you did it in 2024, right? 2024 was the
Yes,
last
time
major
was,
one.
both
Okay.
river-
Other than some of the smaller
river
things we've done, some of the smaller
both
improvements, and
river.
I understand they're not big improvements, but they've been requested.
I mean, at least it's something.
So if we compare 2024 to what we're collecting now in 2026, and we were handed a crash, well, not a crash report, but crash data, and there's that, we'll check that out, Raj, in a moment, but it looks like there's been a lot more activity. You said there's been a lot more activity, the video
Right.
shows there's been a lot more activity. So it more than likely will show up in the data. If it does show up in the data, then we'll take further steps. But we have to go through that process because we're responsible for the whole city.
Let me ask you a question, because
Hold on,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir.
So I work off Harmon Road, and I'm in a new facility, it's 160,000 square feet. Our next door neighbors are new as well, and they're about 190,000 square feet. And this past year, they asked to borrow 280 parking spots from us, because, you can make data say anything. They didn't have enough parking spots for their facility. And so that's one thing I was thinking about for safety purposes. That's what the people are saying, is there's safety issues, not data issues. You can make data say anything you want to protect the budget, or do whatever. But, they got their building built, they don't have enough parking spots. They were going to offer me like $10 a spot to borrow 280 spots.
So that must be to relieve the traffic off of Harmon that we complained about. Thank you. Officer Sanchez?
I don't know about that, but I live on Harmon, I work on Harmon. My son got hit by a car on his bike there. So, there's emotion too, but you guys, you have to thank you for being here doing your job, but you can make data say anything. So I think that's not answering questions, because the real issue really is zoning. When someone can buy land and then just, cheat the taxes for a while and then flip it, in an off time to zone how they want it.
Right, and there is a lot of information.
100%.
So, and I know that's not your fault, but it's the zoning issues. It's like, I just put some
Right.
cows on it, and then I can flip it into apartments.
And it's-
Because our
I'm
schools
worried
can't
about
hold
the
that.
safety
The
of
schools
kids.
can't handle the influx of an apartment being built. So that puts strain on our police officers, on our roads.
100%.
So that's kind of where the issue is, and I know that's not y'all's fault, but.
We don't have enough police officers up in our corridor.
We don't exist.
You have been talking about, but there's only you.
But I just know it's more of a zoning issue than a
Right,
roads issue,
so
in my opinion. But you guys gotta work better together.
Right, so if you look at, obviously I'm a city traffic here, not in the planning zone, but zoning, there are a lot of state statute and legal things which goes with the zoning and what developer can
And
do.
federal.
School can, you really cannot tell a school not to build. There is, really, city has limitation. If you choose a site, I wanna build a school, it's
Next
still
to-
possible.
So schools can build by state law anywhere.
Right.
Didn't tell the apartment complex,
They
no.
can't, you can, the federal government.
They
For
passed
our-
it.
Yes.
They zoned it.
That's what the
And I love Great Parks.
That's what I didn't approve the school.
So my kids go to Great Parks. I love the school. The school's great.
I got you.
Yeah.
And just to, I guess, kind of close that loop on that, we do have a lot of issues with schools. We do have a lot of issues with where they choose to build. Why do they choose to build there? Because it's cheap, right? And so along with that comes a difficulty maybe in terms of access. But once they get it built, it's, you know, and the data, I think, is a part of that because they're required to do a traffic impact analysis and they're also required to do, I'm drawing a blank, but their traffic management plan. Yeah, TMP, traffic management plan on the campus, right? And so when schools have engineers, they'll submit that data, all of us are literally make different comments on it. But there's little we can do to stop that, right? And so to your point, if the data says like a nearby school says we won't have kids walking, so we don't have to build this and this and this. Okay, your data, we're looking, okay, you're gonna have everybody here, okay. And then the reality is we start getting calls from your community saying, hey, everybody's parking in our community and letting the kids walk across Harmon, it's not safe. We come out, we look at it, and not just there, yeah, you're right, you're right. I mean, I'm just saying that people were parking there and letting the kids walk. And so we as a city have to respond and react based upon safety. To your point, again, safety, it's like, well, the kids are walking here regardless of what was said, we gotta do something, so we gotta put a crosswalk in. You know, how much, where's our budget at? Well, we're putting in 25 this year, let's add that one to the list. We gotta have a school zone, you know, we're using the solar now, so we don't have to do the electrical, but it does cost more. But then we don't have to run wire and all that other stuff, you know, like, you know. But just to say that we have to respond and react, but we have to do that across the gamut of a lot of schools across the city. And so there needs to be higher level change. I don't want to sound like a politician, but it's higher level change.
You said your child goes to Greater.
Yes.
So on 287, can you help me out? What's the access during pickup and drop off for the service road on 287?
Well, like I said, I live on Harmon, so we walk to school.
So I drive it. So you can get off of the 287 on ramp, and then you're not supposed to go back on 287. There is very large potholes there. And the school does not like you to do that.
So can
They have sent messages out saying.
that? So the TIA we approved, it dispersed, their engineer gives us a site, they disperse the traffic, they distribute the traffic, right? You say, okay, and it's
There's
size and
accountability.
dancing, right? You're saying, okay, 15% goes here, 10% goes here. I would tell you, the TIA we approved had right in and right out on 287. And it doesn't seem like the school is functioning in the same manner that the TIA.
That's my accountability question.
And also, there wasn't a full TMP, but there was an indication of how the queuing would work in that TIA. And looking at the video, I don't think they're queuing for that TMP because they were supposed to come in and out to 87 as well as Harmon, queue double lanes up to triple lanes and come in around at the back end, and then have queuing in the front.
And some of that might have changed because they are building, you can speak to this.
No, the TMP had that space.
No, the school was already showing the footprint to show.
So that's some of the issue, that's all the issue with the school. But some issue sounds like they are not managing their on-site traffic the way.
So who holds them accountable?
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
So my question is, are there
Who holds-
any
who holds
leadership?
them
Who holds the school accountable to that?
Yeah.
That's my question, we're the politicians. So let me.
Thank you for teaching. I have questions for, are you from the leadership or?
I'm the director of ops, yeah.
We were promised before you built that there, like you said, the plan said that there would be queuing, and what we've seen instead is queuing in our neighborhoods. Our streets are clogged with cars, the traffic, like I don't leave if I need something, I'm like, oh, it's after 3 o'clock, I'll stay home instead because Great Harvest is, or Great Harvest. Great Harvest is a revenue.
So who holds them accountable? That goes back to my very first question.
So let me address a little bit of that in terms of what we've done for Raj and I and our teammates, other teammates on our school, or our team that have done with schools. And that is really just trying to partner with them to figure out the problems. We visited with schools, we met with leadership, We've talked to communities, we met with communities and the school and the council members, because it's all over the city, so it's different districts. In some of the schools, we had PD out with us at one school, and they walked around the school while we were on the road talking, and then they saw some connexes in the back of the school that if they moved them, it opened up a whole other lane for 25 more cars that could fit on campus rather than on the street. The school listened to that, they moved it, and they started functioning along those lines. A couple other things that I say negotiated, it really isn't a negotiation, it's the school being a good, partner with the community, and I don't know, I haven't talked to this particular Great Hearts, but one of the other schools changed the timeframes when they're open. This one, the one school that I have in mind, there was a gate at the roadway, so everybody was queuing on the road. And then the gate opened up at a certain time in the morning. Well, what they did was open up the gate, so now those early vehicles that were dropping people off and were able to get on campus and go all the way to the door. The door didn't necessarily open immediately, but that gave them enough time for, I don't know how many cars, to get in the school and on the campus rather than on the road. And then they also had some staff members, because those kinds of changes cost the school money too. So they had some changes where they had some teachers coming a little bit earlier, so they could open the door a little bit earlier. And then that traffic would start, flowing all the way through. And so those kinds of things are things that we do with the schools to try to partner. You got to remember, the people that are at the school probably had no clue about the zoning and all the things that went on with it at that time. It's just like where we work. We are dealing with policies and things, and all the elected officials are dealing with policies and things that were done sometimes in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And as we come upon things, one of the things that we all have to do is realize, what do I need to do? How can I improve this? Because residents will bring things up to anyone at the city. And we listen and we try to figure out how do we make it better. We can't go back and change it. I wish we could. And I'm 100% understand your points. But we don't have that ability. So we got to make it as good as we can going forward. And we got to try to make it right with whatever authority we're given now. And if we can make a good argument based upon some of the things we hear from the community with, the city leadership, we got a great city manager, great council members. And it's like, all you got to do is really just kind of organize that and bring that forward, and we might be able to make some change. But that's what it takes.
When you hear the complaints come in, why don't you go to step one, would be, are they using what was approved?
So let's talk about that. So we're development services. We review all applications for development, right? So you build a building, you get to what's called CO, and you occupy your building. You're done with development services, unless you need another permit of some sort. So the best approach is what Martin is talking about, is more of a coordination, collaboration after the school is open, where we approach the school and say, hey, this isn't working for the community. What can we do together to make it better? But if you're asking if we don't have a hammer, for lack of a better word, to say, after the school is open, you had a TMP, you did not use it, you shall use it. That just doesn't exist. That's what Martin was mentioning, hey, working with those schools to come up with solutions.
Whose job is that? Us as the community or the city to ensure that what you approved is what is actually be done?
It's the responsibility of the school.
Okay, but so, again, who holds them? It's just like the developer and the city have an agreement, you have to have 2 trees in your yard. Well, once I own the house, I'm no longer the development. So I do whatever I want with the trees in my yard, right? So schools are the same way. They have an agreement with you guys, right? You're not gonna come back. They know that there's only 10 city employees to run, to your point, a, 30, 100,000 million, whatever it is number, right? So that school is like, okay, well, I know this is what it says, but I don't like it, it ain't working, we're just gonna change it. At what point, now you hear the community speaking, right? So the community is emailed. I am a huge My Fort Worth apper. They put it on Fort Worth app. So you've heard from us. So at what point do you come back to ensure what you signed off on, what you agreed with, is being implemented?
I want to reiterate. So there is no formal policy that holds the school accountable to the TMP. That's where Martin said he worked with the schools. And quite frankly, we found some schools that aren't even aware of the TMP that was submitted with the traffic impact analysis. That's just the truth of it. Well, it is, and it comes up when the community makes us aware. And that's when we try to partner with the school to see what can be done. But you guys are asking, is there any kind, what you're really asking, what do we have to make a school use that TMP after they've opened and they're operating? That doesn't exist. That's where we lean on collaboration and partnership.
I think that lies the problem. I think that lies the problem because the city comes in and they say that this school comes in, I know there's federal in there, but an apartment building, whatever, comes in and says, we're gonna build here. And the city said, okay, well, at what cost? And then they tell you the cost. And then they're like, we're gonna have 8,000 parking lots. And we're gonna have this and this. And the city's like, great, that's a fantastic plan. And so let's run with it. You guys walk away from the table and that developer's like, yeah, we ain't spending that money. We got the agreements, they signed off, it's a verbal, handshake, move on. Now it's impacted the community, right?
And Chisholm Ridge
And
is
so-
impacted by Great
Sure,
Park.
so Great Chisholm Ridge, now West Fork Ranch, I mean, we're all gonna be impacted. We got safety, we got people running across. So you're telling us, sitting here today, is we have this agreement at the table and we shake hands and we walk away from it.
We have an approved TA, it has a traffic management plan sometimes, and
So that's where you guys are failing us.
Let me step in for just a minute. I helped put this meeting together tonight by reaching out to Councilwoman Hill and to Sammy Roop, who is one of the most brilliant minds in city government, if you don't know.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to do what Macy said at the start of the meeting we had one time over at North Division PD, where we had a lot of people on a controversial issue. We're here tonight to try to figure out, ask these people, experts, how can we help you do your job? We're not here to accuse them of anything. And I'm going to say what Macy did that night. This is not a bitching session. This is a session where we talk and try to, these guys have brilliant minds. They're locked by certain policies. We're the people who hold people accountable. We're the people who reach out to our councilwoman or to whoever in government gets it done. They're just telling us what you want to change? You start doing what some of us do. I spend a lot of hours every week. Do I reach out to you all the time? I work my butt off all the time on behalf of my community. Well, thank you. Rusty's president of North Fort Worth Alliance. So let's be respectful tonight and not be demanding, but asking how we can help them do their jobs, how we can help, what we can do, how we can help bring about policy changes. What would they do if they lived in our neighborhood and knew there were a bunch of stuff? We've got people, I'm so appreciative of the fact they showed up tonight. Jennifer Pilkington from Great Hearts, Gene Babb, who's the developer with the development company, doing the apartments. They came here in good faith tonight, so I just ask that everything we do be done respectfully and compassionately, and asking, give us your expertise of if you were us, what would you do to help bring about change? And by the way, you're right, my Fort Worth out, fabulous, use it all the time. Get it to a really the most responsive city I've ever lived in.
I agree.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I just want to say a couple things and then we'll get both of your questions. And one of those, I'm leading right into Rusty. So one of the things I want to mention is, what we've done at the city in terms of going out and talking to the schools and having conversations about how we can make it better. Generally, the schools have been very, very open to that. And so I know Rusty is North Fort Worth Alliance, but know Rusty well. We work together. In fact, we talked this week, I think, about something. But it's also leaders in the community. So I like to say the lowest level in the government is the HOA. So if you have your HOA leadership, involved and engaged, to your point, what would I do if I lived in the community? I'm going to my HOA president and saying, hey, let's go to school and have a conversation. Let's talk about what's going on. Just quite frankly, the law is not on our side when it comes to making the school do something like you're talking about. It's just not on our side. But it's not like the school wants to do that. We got a school right here. They don't want to be a disturbance in the community. They want your kids to come. So there's to his point in terms of that communication and that conversation, that's what I would do is let's have that conversation. One of the first questions I always ask is, hey, have you gone and talked to them? Period. Have you gone and had a conversation? So we'll take your two questions and then we'll let Rusty come up and talk for a second. We had their two questions and then Rusty, yes ma'am.
First I want to say thank you because I feel like I have a much better understanding of this whole process now. And thank you for putting in the school zone and the crosswalk and all that stuff you all have done. So So we're talking about a lot of long-term solutions, that, you know, we're doing the study, we're gonna get the data, we're gonna see what may come of that. But in the short term, I know somebody talked about a crosswalk, maybe closer to the neighborhoods. Is there anything else in the short term that we could request that is more feasible for y'all's department to do that would maybe help slow down traffic or help with school safety? And I'll say, I did call and I got referred to the non-emergency police hotline, and they said they can't really assign somebody to run radar on that road, but that as a community member, I can call every single day and request it, which I guess is a solution, but is there anything that we can do to have a little bit more of a presence or something in the short term?
Yeah, I think working through the NPO and having that conversation with the NPO, we've had a lot of conversations with NPOs across the city. And again, they're close to the community, you know, they're walking, I'm gonna say beat, like I'm watching Magna P something, but they're on the beat, you know what I mean? So they're out there in the community, they know the owners of stores and all that stuff, and they know what's happening in the community. And so I would say kind of work through them. They can work with the traffic, I think it's traffic division, in terms of setting up, you know, or details, if there's issues that are, you know, acute, and like this is happening a whole lot here. So I work back through the MPO and see if there's something on the enforcement side. As far as DPW goes, we kind of support each other with PD. And if you have, again, if you have specific issues, you know, either use the My Fort Worth app or, you know, call, email us. And you know, that gives us something to go and look at, go and study. You know, if we have something, what do we have in terms of countermeasures that we can put in place to help the residents in this situation? And then Rusty, and then we have some more questions.
Again, like Sarah said, thank you for being here and for expanding your knowledge on us. And thank you, was it Jennifer? Yeah. So thank you for being here, and I was wondering, I was wondering if we could hear from her about what Great Hearts might be doing to mitigate this problem. I joked with her, we're coming with the pitchforks, and not really, but
I was like, I'll be your support. I'll be your support.
But what is the school's plan to help in this situation?
Yeah, so I will say too, we are grateful as partners because I think we got a fast response from, and we have been working with all the schools there
Of school.
since the opening.
Yeah, we said, hey, we need police officers right here, we need school zone, we need crosswalks,
And it happened fast.
very
I had it happen
so
incredibly fast.
So what is your role?
I'm the director of operations. She's
I am a former police officer, I'm a patrol officer, on my day off, I do work at Great Hearts as a school resource officer. So I'm Officer Wednesday, so most people do know me there on Wednesdays. So, yeah, there's a Wednesday cop around, Officer Wednesday. Anyways, so I invested, as the school opens, we've seen the progression from nothing to what it is now. And it is morphing, they're still doing the construction, they still have plans for routing the traffic. Initially, we had some problems with when the school opened and we're gonna have people coming from 287. Then, we had, well, not just law enforcement, but we had problems with traffic on 287 stacking up on the freeway, which became very hazardous. So then, exactly, so then we had Harmon come to a shutdown because they're stopped there. The traffic, everybody's releasing at the same time, the schools, the companies across the street are releasing at the same time. So we were having such a congestion bog down with multiple accidents on the freeway. And we said, okay, let's rethink this. So we rerouted to the Harmon entrance, but then we double stacked our cars. So we were allowing them to push forward, opening the gate sooner, having people out at the street, and then kind of filtering that in. Now, some of the things I think that we can do because of Great Hearts being there is we know that the traffic's more severe in the mornings than in the afternoons during our school hours. We know that. Do you think that if we have a police car out front in the traffic, like in the roadway, to slow folks down? Do you think just slow them?
Well, we do. We still do. They do every morning. They have it, and that works. I think that
Is having a car present there?
I think it works. I think the problem is that people are still going faster.
Yeah, they do go faster.
As soon as they're out of that school zone, right? And so you have two entrances to two different neighborhoods on both sides, and they're blind turns.
They're coming over a hill that you can't see them coming until it's
And that's what's dangerous, and we feel
They lost
like.
5 minutes by being in that thing, and so when they get down to our side of Running River, it's a freaking 75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So what do you think, would you want,
I think that the ending goal is stoplights on that road.
Can you put it
Essentially, I think that.
can you stretch the school zone? I know that there's a lot of criteria, but can you make the school zone longer? Yeah, to get up to the hill, make it, that school zone a little bit longer, so by the time they get to that hill, then, yeah.
And two schools within like.
Yeah, so just make it longer, I know that there's like a, because I know with Sunset, that school zone is short. That school zone is really short at Sunset. So if you make the school zone longer, then you make just people mad.
And that's something we should do right there is have at least a patrol car.
That would make
We're
it.
authorized to
Keep
use
it.
this facility.
That makes sense.
I think.
First,
then they-
let me, I'm Russ Muller, I'm president of North Fort Worth Alliance. I've been doing this for 15 years. This is not my first rodeo with a private school, blocking the road and not doing what they said they would do, okay? But what I'm hearing here is we have solutions that people are interested in doing. So, nobody's reached out to the North Fort Worth Alliance to help. I have told people time and time again that we are here, we do these things all the time, we will put things together so that you can get some of these solutions written down, work with the staff member in a room, and see what we can do, okay? Now, international, whatever it is, has a place on Heritage Trace Parkway. They pay for traffic control with the police department, okay? They pay for it. What I'd like you to do is think about this. Is think about how many of you want to be, and I mean want to be, because this is not a picnic, want to be on a committee, sit down with staff members and try to look at all of these things. Longer school districts, how do we get greater hearts to patch up the right turn back onto 287? Although I'm not so sure how safe that is.
It's the access road, it's not 287 itself.
Yeah, I know it's the access road, but nevertheless, I've been on that access road, and I don't know how safe that is.
Yeah, well, that's their problem. They do that going in.
We've got a lot of solutions flying around, and we've got a lot of information flying around, and we can fix all of this to the best of our ability over a period of time. I've watched intersections go from stop signs to traffic lights, to roundabouts, and I know they're gonna go back to traffic lights.
Yeah.
Okay? It's the reality of the fact that we've got now 180,000 people. But we got 90,000 people just in 96,000 people just in District 10. Okay, 90,000. And then we've got this portion that's over here where you live, that's in District 7. And we've got another 96,000 in District 4. And we fixed problems in 4 and 7, 4 and parts of 7 and parts of 10. We can fix these things, but we don't fix them. I don't fix them. I get the right people in the room to do that. And if you're willing to do this, we can get it done. All right? Because there's all sorts of, trust me, the transportation, you've got to go to these meetings when we tell you to, because they're not a picnic. When we tell, the transportation impact fees, back when your houses were built, were 30% of what they should have been. Okay? 30%. Now, if you do the math, if it were 100%, it would have paid for the roads that need to be built to make the change. But it was 30%. What'd you get? Money sitting around until we could get enough 30% to drive a mile. I mean, you gotta go to the city council when they start to talk about transportation impact.
We have a volunteer.
Yeah.
So if you go to those events, the issue with us as citizens is we don't go to Topgolf with representatives, whereas like developers do. And so theirs is weighted a little differently. So we might know, anybody looking at that property would say, man, that shouldn't be zoned commercial or residential, when they've been using farmland for the longest. And then it doesn't matter what I say as a citizen when they have a first-name basis with our representative.
Well, let me tell you about the zoning. Okay, let me tell you about the zoning. The zoning's been in
That's
place.
the issue, though.
The zoning's been in place,
But that's the problem.
but it's Texas. It's Texas. And to change that zoning takes an act of God because its property rights are second to mineral rights, and then your personal rights are down here somewhere, okay? So if it's commercial, and that, or not commercial, multifamily, which that property is over here, by right, that person has the ability to build within the zoning property without any.
I disagree because I can't put a McDonald's in my backyard. You're saying.
What's your backyard? It's R, right?
I know, but at
Well,
one
no,
point
you
that was
can't.
not residential.
But
and they
that
changed it.
section of land that's sitting up there where the multifamily is gonna go is zoned C.
But it was.
But it was not.
No, it wasn't.
They have not been paying taxes for the past 15 years as residential. They've been paying as Like I said, I can't put a McDonald's in my backyard because there's rules in place. Changes have to happen. And you said it's an act of God. I've been at those meetings, and all it takes is like a couple of head nods, and then it changes.
Sandy, the legislature took this out of the city's hands.
Well, for this particular property, it was already zoned when this was in Council District 2 before they were District 10.
Right.
So, but the legislature this year did pass SB 840. And so now, developers can put in apartments in certain zonings without having to go through the city zoning process.
And that's what's happening with us.
No, this particular property went through the zoning process.
But our representatives did do a good job then.
Well, I don't, we didn't have a district at that point in time, so I don't.
No, portions of the land were zoned F, general commercial, then I, light industrial, industrial park. Later, sections of the property were rezoned to C, medium density multifamily. It's changed 3 times.
It's not an act of God.
So no.
But you had an opportunity to go to each one of those.
No, actually, we weren't even notified when it changed from I to C. None of us were notified. It was
The first time
changed.
they tried, we fought and we pushed the developer out. Jack and I and a bunch of others worked on it back in 2017, and it worked when we all banded together. And then this time it snuck in before
Just like the
even
Keller
noticed
ISD
that.
property.
You're right. We stopped it
Yeah.
before.
Just like the Keller ISD property by Home Depot. Same thing
Okay,
happened.
Look, it's not these guys' fault.
There's
It's
a
the
zoning process in the city. The developer decides that they would like to purchase a piece of property and rezone it. They talk with our development services staff. Development services tells them, you need to talk with your council member and you need to talk with your community. They meet with us, we tell them before we make any decisions to go any further with it, you need to talk to the neighborhood associations or HOAs in your area. All the city council members do that.
That process doesn't change.
Okay, no, for District 7, it's always been this way. Now, this area was in District 2 before 2023. But District 7, this is because I've been there for 28 years, this is what we've always done, all the council members. What was I going to say? So, and we work real closely with the HOAs and the neighborhood, volunteer neighborhood associations in our district, as District 10 does, and so do the council members do, before the council members will agree or disagree on a zoning case. Now you have, when it comes to the zoning commission, the city of Fort Worth sends out notifications to all the HOAs, volunteer neighborhood associations in the area, and up to what, 300 feet in the
Yes,
surrounding area.
radius.
That are registered with the city.
That you have to be registered with the state, that's an issue. Then you also have, so that meeting happens like the second Wednesday of the month. Then typically those zoning cases come to council the next, business meetings that next month, typically the first Tuesday of the month. Yeah, and so you have 2 opportunities for public comment. You can always contact the council member's office and say, hey, we don't like this. We don't want this. This is not what we want, or we support this. We're happy this is going in. Whatever you think about that particular zoning case, you can always reach out to the council member and let them know.
It's always law.
Yeah. and
All comments are logged that come into the council office and that come into zoning, and the staff makes about each piece of property that goes through
You
the
said it's only
process.
300 feet from that
Well,
area?
let me go beyond that. Beyond the 300 feet, any HOA, registered HOA within a half a mile, which would be Chisholm Ridge and
Ridgeview Farms.
The North Fort Worth Alliance is notified, and we notify the two HOAs nearby, and I will tell you that we don't get responses.
Should you proactively check in with the representative?
Yeah, this HOA, Ridgeview Farms, was 25 years with the developer hopping a squad over there.
Yeah.
So he didn't care.
He never.
I just became the president a year ago.
Okay.
Nobody's reached out to me, I didn't even know you existed. So that outreach is failing. When the development gets turned over to the homeowners, and we actually live there, we care a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so if we're not getting that outreach, and we don't even know you exist, and we've been butting up against the developer, who all he cared about was maybe getting some partners to build this, and build that, and build this.
And there's four board members here from Chisholm Ridge. I don't think we've ever been notified of this apartment.
Oh, that's not true.
Who did,
The apartments, the apartments.
Well, because it wasn't a zoning case. It
Because
was
it's
that
not a zoning
property.
case. That property, zoned C, he's building C, you can't do anything about it. By Texas rights, by Texas law, he has the right to do that without going through the zoning process. The only thing he has to do is get it platted through development services and meet the requirements of the development of the city. That's true on anything, that's true on any piece of property, no matter how it's zoned. And that's why there was a problem in Basswood. If y'all remember the Basswood,
Keller ISD.
Keller ISD 6, okay? All the people, I went back and checked every single solitary email that was sent by the city's zoning department. The HOA presidents were all notified. All of them. Not a single one of them said anything.
Did you pick up the phone and try to call them?
They're not in the North Fort Worth Alliance. Not a single one of them showed up.
That doesn't mean that they're unsafe community.
Because
Well, it goes to the president.
we don't have any.
I mean, accountability does go both ways.
Are we supposed to-
You assume that
Nobody
position,
told
you
us.
assume that
Register with the
responsibility.
city. You can do that. You can check with, you in District 4 or 7?
Well, it's 7 and 10.
7 and 10?
Yeah, because ours is that one that's got that little.
Check.
And also, every individual in this room can register for every zoning case that ever comes to
Yeah.
any city in the Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So, how do you do this?
City website. You can subscribe and get an email every time.
Yeah, all you have to do is enter the word subscribe and
Yeah.
city search.
If you're willing to work on these, going back to the problems of roads, if you're willing to work on this and put together people who represent what's going on, we can do this. But we can't do this in a meeting like this.
What kind of committee are you looking to form?
Just people to sit down, figure out what the idea is, how to work with staff, and find out what we can do when.
Well, I'm with you at this school, like, I'm willing to volunteer for something, I'm not quite clear what type of committee. Want to sit down and talk about what? How to help the traffic from schools?
The first thing we can do is get educated on exactly what the city can do, what the different funds are that are available to the city, how the studies work, how the 24-hour studies work, how all of this goes together, and what we can request in short term, and medium term, and long term.
To alleviate traffic problems.
To alleviate, that's all we're going to deal with is the traffic.
What's that?
That's all we're going to deal with. All we're going to deal with is basic legal traffic problems.
Okay.
We cannot deal with the people who run traffic lights and stoplights and stop signs and so forth.
I'd still like to hear from Jennifer, because we asked what the school's going to do, we heard what they have done, but we haven't heard what they're going to do.
And it's going to get worse, Jennifer, so we really wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, we work with law enforcement, we work with the city, we
we've changed things up, we don't have the construction team that's out there, we evaluate it, we follow it, we work with these guys, again, that response was like the crosswalk. I'm really excited about the flashing sign, I don't know if they'll have the time that that's gonna be installed.
No, it's gonna be fiscal year 27. But it is on our.
That's after October.
Yeah, October.
Okay. Yeah, and we're still growing, so there's gonna be a new traffic pattern coming in for the high school. My goal is to make sure that we have really good relationships with 7-Eleven, with departments, and with neighborhoods. I always welcome
So
anyone.
is 7-Eleven okay that your parents parking in the parking lot?
Yep, yeah, we talk to them, we establish really.
Well, yeah, they run in and they buy a drink. I would allow it too. I mean, those nerd gummies taste really good.
I'm communicating with the apartment developer, making sure that there is proper residents living there next to the school, making sure that we're kind neighbors. I find our parents to be kind neighbors as much as I can from the inside.
Are you gonna increase like how much like you're queuing on your property rather than queuing out in the community? Are you gonna, we went to a charter school where we lived before and there was no traffic on the street because we would go onto the school property and there were 6 lines. It was like at a ski resort. We all lined up in the 6 lines and then they go first row and the first row would come through, just like on the ski lift. And because we were in Utah, so we had to use ski lifts. And it did not impact the community. So do you?
So I will say kind of what they said. We're at the edge of our property on the other side of that street. It's not even our street that goes around, that belongs to the city. We can't, I don't have much say with concrete work.
There's sidewalks planned, so once they start construction on that area for the apartments, kids walk down that way a lot. They're not walking on the other side of the street. So they're planning for sidewalks on that city street to get children off if they're going to be walkers.
Are those kids cutting across?
Not all of them. Some of them are going straight down the road and crossing the street at the crosswalk with the police officer in the cross. And then they're waiting in cars, or they're going to Chisholm Ridge, or they're going to West Fork Ranch, or they're going to Great Farm. There's so many kids that are in those neighborhoods that go to Great Hearts.
Aren't the kids crossing your apartment property right now?
I have been told so, that other than a liability issue, that doesn't bother me.
Is this a gated?
That roadway is actually.
Yes, it will be.
So nobody will be able to walk through there, which is going to create and nobody will be able to park in your parking spot, so.
No.
Where will those people go if if they can't park? Does it infringe on 7-Eleven's land at all? Any of this space between the school and this? I haven't looked at the plans, so.
Because that's my question for this developer.
He said he's got a gated community.
It's going to be gated?
Yeah.
So it's 252 units?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you planning for 2 cars per unit?
No.
We are planning on 462 spaces for 252 units, and that equates to 1.06 spaces per bedroom.
Oh, per bedroom.
Yes.
So here's one thing.
Just under 2 per unit, but 1.06 or excuse me, 1.06
And are
per
consumers
bedroom.
limited to the number of cars they can bring in? So like if I just decide to live there and I've got a car I have for work, another car that's my personal car, and then I collect my Jeep Wrangler that I like to ride around on the weekends or take to the beach, am I allowed to put 3 cars in your community?
You
Or
are.
should I be parking them over at Chisholm Ridge?
You are, but I will tell, I've been doing this for 19 years, and parking for a multifamily developer is of most importance. You cannot underpark a multifamily development and expect to be successful. So we're sticklers on our parking requirements. That's why we overpark what is required by the city. We always provide more parking.
What's the price point?
Ma'am?
Are you going to tell your tenants that their extra cars cannot be parked in Chisholm?
They're not going to have to. I've never, in 19 years, I've never had anyone complain about lack of parking in any of our communities.
What's the requirement by city for your community? Like how many parking spaces do you have to have per bedroom or per number?
I think there are 432 spaces required, and we're providing 462. I've got that exact number.
What's the price point for this?
The rents, we are anticipating probably $1.75 to $1.80 square foot.
which equals what to a one-bedroom apartment?
Well, you know, if it's 1,000 square feet, then, you know, $1,700, $1,650.
For like one bedroom?
Yes, that, no, that was it for 1,000 square feet. One bedroom is probably 1,400, 1,350, 1,400, and three bedrooms up, you know, above 2,000.
So anyway, if you want to put together something, get in touch with me, Donna, you're with the Chisholm Ridge HOA, right?
Yeah, there's four of us here.
Okay.
Yeah, there's four.
Have somebody get in touch with me, I mean, you know.
You have email? I need your email or number.
I get your
You
email.
got a card?
I'm surprised you don't know because of Perez. Tony Perez.
Yeah, Tony works with them a lot.
So let me take your question, because your hands up for a minute, and then I want to address a few things before we close out. Yes, sir.
So we've been talking about the, you know, like the traffic study, and there potentially may not be enough cars to warrant the signal. My thought is, why don't we force it? If we take, so there were 5 entrances from Chisholm Ridge onto Harmon Road, 5. If we were to take the east entrance and the west entrance, I understand the east entrance is more impactful than the very west entrance on the north side of Harmon Road. If you were to close both of those and force more cars into Chisholm Ridge through, you know, those into Harmon, those certain intersections, I think you certainly get to our number that is going to warrant a signal at those intersections, right?
But I got to close something too, so we got to pull on those roads upset with this, but, couple things I want to address. The 287 payment issue on the frontage road, I'll reach out to the state, I've got contacts at the state, and we'll reach out to them and tell them, hey, there's a problem here, y'all just send somebody out here to fix that. That's not a hard thing to do if it's, I haven't seen it, but y'all describe it as potholes.
There's no actual road, it's just, and they
Oh, I'm
have.
sorry, I was thinking it was a road with potholes.
Well, no, so an on-ramp to go into but you are not allowed to exit, school discourages exiting onto 287. It's not built. It's not built
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
to make a hole. So they discourage it, but people do it, it is the easiest way to get out of there.
Yeah, they would like that.
It is the better access point unless you cannot make a left down.
I got you.
So it's
It's
easier
just
to
not
go
what I
there.
thought, but it is something they need to.
Again, there is some, I don't know that I can speak, there is something being worked on, but it's federal, it has to go through different, you know,
Tech stop, right?
Well, I talked about the state earlier. The extension of the school zone. So we'll look at that.
And I do that electronically.
Is that on her point, a short term could work, that extension.
And we'll look at that. We have situations all over the city, as you can imagine, where there are hills, sometimes in school zones, sometimes not. We have to address it.
Yeah.
The other crosswalk, I wanted to get the exact location of the other crosswalk.
Well, between the Running River,
Running
it goes across Harmon from Ridgeview Farms to Chisholm Ridge.
So you need to cross off on Harmon, right?
Yes.
Crossing Harmon.
Yeah, crossing.
Usually we see, because we got 4 lanes, we gotta make sure that pedestrian is crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one with the flashing lights would be around
I
nice.
can't just put a sign on the wall.
Because we'll make the request, but it's not something we can immediately do.
Well, I mean, anything you do to slow down.
I got you. Let me address a couple more things, and then we'll let everybody go, when everybody's hungry. One thing is, enforcement, we talked about, coordinating with PD, you guys had issues in the community. Ford PD is one of the best in the country, if not the best. They're very responsive to me as a citizen and to me as a employee. So reach out to your MPO, have that conversation, and they will work with you. And then the last thing is just engagement, because a lot of what I heard tonight really is about, you know, working through your HOA folks and then making sure your HOA folks know who to call to help you with some of the issues in the community. One of the main things that we should do as a community, and one of the things that attracted me to Fort Worth, is the fact that I can go to my HOA president when I first got here, they know who to call at the city about trash, or about somebody's yard is messed up, or somebody, you know, whatever it might be. But you gotta use those channels to get things done in the community, that's what makes us a community. So I think the fact that some of your leadership from your HOA here and Rusty, and we know Rusty well, but why do we know Rusty so well? Because he's representing a whole bunch of people on North Fort Worth, and all the issues that they have, they'll go trickle up through, and Rusty is kind of the focal point for that.
Yeah.
He'll address some of those with us, ready to work with him to get some resolution to things. So use the system that's in place to benefit you. And you don't have to necessarily wait on the city. If the school's open and having a conversation with the HOAs, have the conversation. You know, you might be able to solve a problem, or they might be able to help you, or you help them with the issue right on point. But it sounded like some of those conversations hadn't happened, and so there was a lot of energy today, and I get it, because it's upsetting that you feel like you hadn't been heard, when you feel like there hadn't been anything done, but there are some reasons why that is. But I think tonight, one of the things y'all heard is you have representation at several different levels, not just Councilmember Hill has a whole bunch of people she has to represent, but even on a lower level of the HOAs, and even with Rusty representing several HOAs, y'all have some representation on different levels that can help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. And if not, at least they can explain what the problems are, what the issues are with it. When we talk to Rusty all the time, we'll probably have more conversations with some of your HOA leadership as things go. Reach out to us and have a conversation. That is, I think, all I had to say. I don't think.
Well, let me ask, give the lieutenant and one of the best NPOs in the country.
Hands down.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
We want to introduce Lieutenant Gino. Lieutenant Gino came up here Friday? Saturday, okay, from the west side. And Bobby's been here since
years.
Grown grass.
Yeah, not going anywhere.
I will make it quick and go over time. So the bottom line is, I've been with our department for 27 and a half years. I actually live about a mile south of here. I completely understand because my wife comes home every morning bitching about stuff. So I'll just make it simple. I don't deal in excuses, okay? I know that part of the problem is people are speeding on Harmon Road, okay? I'm not gonna make excuses about the number of officers we have and the ability to pay them. I will look at what we have and I'll see if I can come up with a creative solution to get some officers out there to enforce the speed. Fair enough? Any questions?
I am concerned with summer starting, and I've noticed it already. I'm worried about these kids with the popular motorized scooters.
They're
everywhere. They're everywhere, and I did see two little boys, they were smart enough to cross at the light right there at 7-Eleven, but they were going into Chisholm Ridge, but I'm extremely concerned about these kids.
We all are. Motorized scooters have been kind of unregulated, unfortunately, and trying to explain to people that, well, it works like this. People on bicycles, no offense to any of you who ride bicycles regularly, but they piss everybody off, right? Because they ride outside the lanes, they don't stop the stop signs like they're supposed to, and they think, you know, they act like they.
They have a right to be on the road.
They have to respond.
You have a response, you are a bicycle, you are considered a vehicle, and so you have to obey the rules of the law, of the road. Same for the scooters. Okay? Now, here's the problem, and I'm gonna be very blunt. Officer pulls over a kid on a scooter, what's the first thing that happens? They call their parents, and mom and dad start screaming because the police are harassing their kid.
You're right.
So, I'm not saying we can't do it. What's that?
Pick your poison, right?
Right. So, yes, I have a concern about it, absolutely. I almost hit somebody the other day because same thing, he just pulled out in front of me in a crosswalk. But he didn't even bother to stop and look when he came out from behind the houses. He just rolled out into the crosswalk, which is illegal, okay? Yes, we can deal with it, but yes, I have concerns, but by state law, they're allowed to be there.
Okay, so those little motorized scooters, they don't have to follow anything like a motorcycle law or anything like that?
I will email y'all the sheet that I have, that, from the traffic code, that breaks it down really well, and it has the scooters, the mini bikes, all of these motorized, electronic.
Bicycles, all that stuff.
It has them all on there, even golf carts, and exactly what he's saying though. The bicycles are regulated exactly like a regular bicycle. The scooters, yes, they are supposed to stop before they go out into a road. Yeah, they're still supposed to follow basic pedestrian or bike laws.
Okay.
They're not allowed to just fly out into the road.
And to answer your question, pretty much the rule of thumb is if they'll go under 20 miles an hour, they're not a motorcycle. And honestly, some of them can go a little faster than that.
No.
Yeah.
They're still not legally considered motorcycles, so you're not required to have a license to drive them. Yes.
Are you allowed to drive those on the road? Because I have one, I just didn't know
What?
what the.
You are allowed.
Like scooters, the ones that go like 15 miles an hour?
That's a class 2, so yeah.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be on the street?
Yes.
Even if it slows down traffic?
Yes.
I didn't know.
Just like a regular bicycle.
It's just like a bicycle.
You gotta stay to the rightmost side of the road,
Yeah.
like follow bicycle laws.
Yeah.
But the problem is, they don't do it.
It's not part of our culture either, like, not many people ride bikes, it's just not part of it.
And I will say, the city, I've been working with the city for months, with the lady who's in charge of putting out like the info flyers that you see for various things. The city is working on ordinances. They're trying to get back in front of this. It all kind of like blew up all of a sudden. We're working on a flyer. There's been meetings at council, but the department, me and one other traffic officer specifically, are working on a flyer to basically break down the traffic code and show which ordinances apply to the scooter versus the bike versus the mini bikes, the pocket bikes, not allowed at all.
Not allowed.
If it has pegs and no pedals and it has a motor, it is not allowed on the road at all. We're impounding those. So we'll pull them over. They run from us a lot.
That's a small motorcycle.
Yeah, they're not allowed on the road at all. But the traffic law is really confusing if you're not used to reading it, so that's why we're trying to get an infographic flyer type of thing put together to make it as simple as possible so that people are aware, so the parents know what is and isn't allowed. And that should be coming out, fingers crossed, like real soon. We're trying to get it out, like beginning of summer time.
Well, if you will send it to us, we can put that out in our newsletter as well.
Okay, it's coming from Valerie
Send it
Colbert.
to Send it to
Close it all.
Yeah.
I would say if you guys
Send
have
it to 10 and 4.
Yeah.
if you have recommendations that we could push through HOA rules as well for sidewalks and things like that, we would love to hear those recommendations so that we can keep everybody safe.
I'm sorry, but I'd like to change the subject.
Okay.
With the developer who's here for the new apartments, I'd like to know from you, sir, how you're gonna be a good neighbor to Chisholm Ridge and the rest of the communities.
Okay, well, hang on. I've been sitting back there for an hour.
I'm sorry.
You're gonna hear from him as soon as I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? So basically, the bottom line is, I'll work on getting more traffic enforcement out there. Okay? I'm not gonna make promises to you that I can't keep. So what that means is I will do my best to find a way to pay the officers and get them out there. Okay? That's basically what I can do for you right now. Any other, yes, ma'am?
I mean, I think, several of the Chisholm Ridge, us, we've even gotten together and talked about, hiring off-duty. So that, that's also.
I never ask people to do that because I feel like it's an imposition on you. However, there are PIDs and stuff out here that do pay for officers, so that is an option that we could take a look at. I know at one time I used to work the PID for this neighborhood over here. So, and as a matter of fact, my whole job was speed enforcement in the neighborhood.
Yeah, there are multiple HOAs in this area that pay off-duty officers.
I will say this though, one of the problems with doing speed enforcement is sometimes we catch the people that are in this room.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, people get mad until
From your professional opinion, do the signs that say your speed is with the radar detectors deter speeding in certain
Somewhat,
areas?
yes.
Would that be an idea for traffic to put those as a temporary to slow people down on that?
Sure.
Can those cameras take pictures of the license plate?
I'm sorry? No. That one, so what they do is they just, all it does is it puts your speed is X, right? It does help slow some people down. Once people realize that, there's no cop out here enforcing it, then they go right back.
It's
sometimes you don't know how fast you're going. Some of these newer cars, they drive so smoothly, you look
Yeah,
down, you're
I-
like, holy cow.
That's true.
I mean, in defense of, the drivers,
I
I'm
get it,
guilty.
I drove my mother's Volkswagen Beetle one time, and that thing flew. I was like, I didn't realize how fast I was going, but
Yeah.
it was. Teslas are like that too, you don't know.
Yeah.
Any other questions I can answer for you? I've already taken up more time than I wanted to, so. My name is, don't worry about pronouncing my last name. Everybody calls me Lieutenant Gino. I've been here for a long time, I've been all over the city. Pretty much if you mention my name, somebody's gonna go, oh, I know him.
But how do you pronounce it?
Jenny Waldo, just found out all about it. People panic if they see all the vowels, right? Just sound them out, yes.
Which MPO, what neighborhood would I be under in Ridgeview Farms?
She's amazing, behind you.
She's amazing. I talk to your management company all the time.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, the management company is not HOA.
They reach out to me all the time.
Okay, so you are in.
Thank you.
You are in North Division, you all know that. This is considered Ed District, okay? I'm the lieutenant over Ed District. Bobby works directly under me in the food chain, technically speaking. So,
She's very responsive.
I am new to Ed District, I am not new to this department, and I am not new to solving problems.
That My Fort Worth app though does really help
I
you
agree.
guys,
I agree.
and it really helps us, and the response, it's like a Bible for me. And I've reached out to Bobby, and she's like, you need to go through the chain, put it there.
Yeah, put it
And
on the.
Yep, I
Because it
do.
gets a number that.
100%.
And just to be clear, just so you know where I'm coming from, I mean, honestly, I spent the last 4 years on West 7th. And I managed to pretty much fix that, so if I can fix that, I can pretty easily fix this.
Yeah.
Any questions? And no, I don't smile a lot. It's just, don't take it personal, it's just me.
Who's the HOA that's directly across Harmon Road from Chisholm?
That's them.
So you're gonna call me, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's your name, sir?
Gene Bath.
Say the
Now,
best of luck.
come up here, now you can talk. Now it's your turn.
He's like, I don't want to.
You can say,
I don't know how to
"Oh,
really answer that question, other than we will follow every regulation that we have to follow required by code during the construction process. I can't control any individual that comes and lives in our apartment no more than you can control any of your neighbors. You know, we will do our best. We have a very rigorous application process. Not everyone gets approved. A lot of people get declined that, want to move into our apartments. And, we vet everyone as well as we can. Everyone assumes that bad people are going to live in apartments. Well, I've lived in an apartment. I've never gone to jail. And I'm assuming most people in here probably live in apartments at one time. But, we do everything we can in the vetting process and the application process to make sure we're not letting bad people in the apartment. I can't guarantee that. Some are going to slip through AI and create a whole new